Guys, it's Austin. This is Pauper Ponderings for the Mana Base. We are back this week with Jund Midrange. And I know when you think of Pauper Ponderings, you usually think of cool, gimmicky, maybe combo-ish style decks. This week we're kind of regressing back towards the mean in terms of just playing powerful cards. We saw 2 weeks ago when I played Sultai Lantern Control, where it did make a lot of sense, to not only have kind of a combo in your deck, but to play a lot of powerful cards around and kind of comfort that combo. Well, this week we kind of said we don't really need a combo. We're just going to play basically the best cards at every mana cost in these three colors. So if we go to the 1-drops, we have a Disfigure, 2 Flame Slashes, and then 4 Lightning Bolts. Pretty standard for these kind of red-black mid-range kind of a creature control decks. 2 Chainer's Edict, the best removal spell in the format, makes sense. An Echoing Decay for any sort of elves or spirits or soldier decks that we play against. We have 4 Night's Whispers, just good card advantage, easier to cast than Sign in Blood. An Evolution Charm, kind of works in with our grinding package. We have our 2 Sakura Tribals just to help our mana a little bit and kind of get up to our larger threats. 4 Terminates, it's basically the best removal spell in the format. It's going to kill almost every creature that any deck plays. And look at that sweet art. Plain shift, no problem. We have Putrid Leech, I would say one of the most underplayed creatures in the format. 2 mana 4/4 most of the time. A lot of decks in Pauper are not fast enough to punish us too badly for paying 2 life every turn or every couple turns. It's not so much the 2 life that is the issue, it's the threat of paying the 2 life, and that's what's so good about cards like these. 3 Phyrexian Ragers, kind of the meat and potatoes of these black-based mid-range decks. We see mono black control play a full playset of this card. When we have cards like Pulse of Marassa and Evolution Charm, we can kind of skim. We're only playing 3. We need a couple more removal spells just to be able to make sure that we get to our late game. Then we have kind of the most interesting card in the list here, 2 Strangling Sits. 2 in a black for an instant, destroy target creature with toughness 3 or less, and then flashback for 5 in a red. I have been fairly impressed with this card. I have only cast the front side of it, but I can definitely see having the flashback be a huge boon in a lot of matchups, especially matchups that are going to go late. A lot of creatures in Pauper are usually small, and I would say that this thing kills, I'm going to go ahead and say like 85% of the creatures in the format. Then we have a Stagger Shock, just as kind of an added value card. Going to be able to take out 2 creatures in a lot of decks in the format, and just be another 2-for-1 for our 3-color midrange deck. And then we have Pulse of Marassa. This is a card that I've played more and more in sideboards, and this is the first list I've seen where it's kind of been in the main deck. And in the few practice games that I played with this deck, I was very impressed. Being able to swing the race, 6 life is a lot of life, and getting back any amount of Putrid Leeches or Phyrexian Ragers or Recruber Elders or Gurmag Anglers, when your creatures are all so powerful, getting them back and swinging a race can be the difference between winning and losing a lot of games in Pauper. Then we go into Wickerboar Elder. I love to have main deck artifact and enchantment hate. There are just so many good artifacts and enchantments in Pauper, whether it be Oublier, Journey to Nowhere, any amount of equipment. And being a 4/4 beater after it destroys an equipment is pretty friggin' powerful. And then up at the top of the curve, big old Gurmy, 5 mana, or 7 mana, 5/5. Most of the time going to cost much less than that. Again, just the best curve topper in the format. We play a lot of lands, 22 with the amount of Sakura Tribe Elder and Pulse of Marassa to get some back. So we are going to hit our land drops, and having a top end threat is really important when you go to the late game. If we move over to the sideboard here, pretty standard. 2 Nile Spellbombs to deal with graveyard decks. 3 Ancient Grudges for Affinity, probably the most played deck in the format. 2 Electrickeries, a card that I just love to have in any sideboard of any Pauper deck that can play it. We have another Chainer's Edict if we run into Boggles. 2 Duresses for any sort of blue, teaching style strategies. A Natural State kind of comes back to the Wickerboar Elder. There's just a lot of times you want to destroy some enchantments or artifacts, and just having the ability to do that for 1 mana is very powerful. And this is actually the coolest thing about this deck, is if you look at the mana base, 3 Evolving Wilds and 3 Terramorphic Expanse with a bunch of basics kind of allows us to splash 1 island, which gives us 7 blue sources, and then 3 Muldrifters. So like what I can see happening especially against a deck like mono black or black green, some sort of mid-rangey black based control deck, is depending on how the game goes, we could just run out of cards. That's very, very likely to happen. With a card like Muldrifter in our deck, paired up beside Impulsive Marassa and Evolution Charm, it's going to be pretty difficult for a mono black deck to run us completely out of cards. And that's where I think we kind of get the edge, especially against a deck where, you know, they're not going to be pressuring our life total. The blue splash is definitely not going to hurt us too badly, and I am excited to see how that plays. I haven't played a matchup where I wanted to board it in yet, but hopefully we get to see in some of these recorded games, and I do think it'll be pretty powerful. So that's it for the deck tech. Join us right away for round 1. My name is Austin. This is Pauper Ponderings, and you are on the Mana Base.